All right. So this is really, oh man, this is like the third time I've tried this. I don't know if I'm going to get it this time either. Trust in the age of internet data. And this is really about quality and understanding what you're pulling in when it's not an in-person or when it's, not completely data created by your internal users, data that came from people on the outside, but even you can have fraud or other problems with internal users. So this is really about in the age of the internet where there's masses of data. Where did it come from? Who provided it? Who is it really about? Is somebody poisoning the well? Traditional data questions. So typically what we've done was we said, is the data formatted correctly? Is the data internally consistent? Did I capture all the fields I need? Do I know the schema of this data? Bunch of things that are sort of traditional data mapping, but really, if you're doing an internet app, suddenly there's a bunch of other internet questions. There's a bunch of other data questions. Who provided the data? How was it entered? Who entered the data, right? Like, it turned out the person who provides it might not be the one that entered it. If you were doing a school loan quote, you might be able to get one online, or you might be able to get it through a sales rep. Well, if you do it through the sales rep, a different person entered it. You can have independent agents. You can have other people. They could be good actors, bad actors. It just kind of depends. And so, who provided the data? Who is the data provided about, right? So bad actor, want to know if the person down the street is got a job. So I do a school loan application against them and figure it out, right? And so in this case, who is the data provided about? Is it about the same? Let me do a better one. Kids moving off to college, they need renter's insurance. Parent applies for the renter's insurance in the kid's name, right? Parent provided the data. Data is provided about the kid. So we always want to know who entered it, and is the data provided about the person that is giving it to us, or is it about somebody else? And then how accurate is the data? For the person the data is about, how accurate is it? And in some cases, that's going to be fake, right? Like, I could do a school loan and give my house down the street so that I don't get any email from the school loan company, right? So when you look at this data, and it seems ridiculous, but those are really the most important questions. Who provided it? Who is it about? How accurate is the data? And in some cases, I think, what's their intent? So let's do the school loan teaser, right? So this is where you go to a loan site and aggregator, and you can enter some data. It'll give you like 5 different rates for a school loan. And so those are interesting because they're completely anonymous. We have no idea who entered the data. People may put deliberate errors in. I put other street addresses, right? I give a different email address. So there could be deliberate errors in the data that may or may not affect the business part of this, but they poison that data a little bit, or they're deliberate or they're accidental. So from a who entered it, we don't know. Who are they entering about? We may or may not know, because the errors may be enough we can't tell. And like I said, a lot of times if I'm entering data, it doesn't mean the quote's for me, like a loan quote or renter's insurance or whatever we're talking about. Could be about somebody else. And so then those are the 2 examples I gave you before. One's the school loan for my kid, and it's going to be in their name. And the other one is I'm putting me at address somewhere else so I can get an idea if I move what the price is going to be, right? If it was something that was affected by geolocation. And another thing about these teaser quotes is the farther you get into the quote process, the closer you get to applying a loan, the more accurate the data is, assuming it's not fraud, but the receiver must always assume it's a fraud attempt, right? Or at least act as if it was. So one way around this is to do authentication. And authentication is basically me providing you some information that makes you think you know who I am. A lot of times, though, authentication, all it really means is you're talking to the same person you talked to before. So if you do a SMS, a phone text to do authentication, hey, give me your phone number. All that tells you is that that person has that phone number, right? And there are plenty of ways to get a phone number that's temporary. So all it says, if you continually use that same authentication mechanism, all it tells you is it's the same person that provided the phone number for, assuming it wasn't stolen. Right, so authentication doesn't guarantee who that person was. It kind of guarantees you a unique persona. So the same persona came back to you, maybe not the same person. Authentication also doesn't imply data accuracy, especially prior to any kind of contractual obligation. And even after that, people will lie, like in the insurance market, to get a better price on the first go round. Or when they get a school loan, some kind of loan, they may lie about their income. They may do something else, even if they authenticate. Hey, I gave you, and so authenticated users may still do what if, and they still may do lies that they don't think hurt you. So an authenticated user working with them does not imply any accuracy of the data. And also, like I talked about before, there are different levels of authentication. There are those secrets. We're going to authenticate you and give you a password if you can tell us what your last 3 cars were and what bank the car payments were. But a lot of times, it's just an email link backlink, or it's a text backlink, or it's a social media backlink, right? And so you can have these different kind of hardness and softness in authentication, and that you might not take certain kinds of data. And so that could affect the accuracy of the data too. But like I said, in a lot of cases, you really can't trust, even if something's authenticated, that the data is correct. And you may end up corroborating that data from a second source. So I'm going to use the school loan. Is that the right one? Yeah, I'm going to use the school loan example here. And the question is, like if you go to one of these aggregator sites, like I said before, who provided the data for the school loan quote? Who is the data about? Is it that person? Is it their kid? Is it fake? Is it about some neighbor? They want to see if the neighbor's got enough money to get a school loan. How accurate is the data provided? It may not need to be that accurate to push through a transaction, and you may not care. But if you're going to merge that data with other data about that person, then suddenly you care. It's bad. So one of the ways you can get around this, and we talked about this before in virtual customer data model, should we tranche the data based on accuracy and purpose? So we might collect multiple data sets about a person through different transactions, or what we think is the same person. That data might actually be trusted. The data that went all the way to a contract and was verified against external sources might be a higher level trusted tranche compared to data earlier in that process, or that came off a marketing link or something else. So I'm going to just do the school loan flow here, and we're just going to talk a little bit about what do we know about who provided it and who it's about. And so could be marketing driven. Somebody got an ad, they click on it, could be some other traffic link. They visit the quote aggregator, and when they show up, we have no idea who they are, and we have no idea who this quote, the school loan is going to be about. And they enter some data to get a price. We still have no idea who provided the data. We may have a marketing link off of it or some, but if we don't know who that person really was because we bought that data, that's only marginally useful. And then who is the data about? We know it's about somebody now. Like we probably found somebody that kind of looks like, Pradeep Smith, but we're not really sure. But it's somebody because they were trying to get a price, but we just didn't know who that thing is. And then they get a quote for that via email. So now who provided the data? All we know about that person is they have an email address, and we might be able to bind that to a previous use case for that email address at our company or somewhere else. Pretty untrustworthy a lot of times. So all we know after we did this quote is we know that there is a person or bot located at this address and that they gave us data about somebody, right? And then why is this tranche one here too? I will fix that in the after thing, right? So in this case, really nothing should be trusted. And we might get some tie back though, and we might use that in a non-legal way. I mean, not illegal. I mean, not in a legal risk fashion. So, then they come back on a click back, right? And so we gave them an email, and let's do the one on the left. And so basically in the process in the middle, actually, restart via the confirmation link, edit the loan quote data, validate, company's going to validate it against the public data, and they submit the application. Those are in the wrong order, but I don't care for the purposes of this. So if it's an unknown email address, we know it's accurate email, and we know the quote's about somebody, and they edit the value. And all that means is we still know it's accurate email. That's all we know about the person that submitted it. That may or may not be the person the loan's about. And so the who it's about is somebody, and they may not be the same, right? And then we validate against public data. We're still don't know if it's about us or somebody else. But at this point, we know that the actor that came in, we validated, we think we know who they are, but the school loan may be about them or about somebody else still. Like, it might be complicated to figure that out because, who was it? George Foreman had like 3 sons named George Foreman. So, you don't know at that point. But, the trust got up a little bit, right? And then we submit the application, so we know some actor did this. It may or may not be the person who the loan's about, and we know the loan's about somebody or the actor at that point. Now, on the known email or known contact, what we're going to assume is that we've had a previous interaction with this. We have some level of trust, right? So when they come back off the email link, we're going to know they're a previous customer. Oh, these people got a loan before. We know that the quote is about them or somebody else we don't really know yet. And then we're going to edit the clone data, quote data, and now we're going to start validating against other data we have for this customer. And if it was really about the customer, we'll know that, or it could be somebody else, we'll know that. And then we know it was a previous customer. And then as we move through this, right, basically we know this email was from a previous customer. That doesn't mean we know it was in the real world necessarily, but we know they've had an interaction with this before. And so basically the trust level goes up, like by validating against public data, submitting things, being logged in, right? So, man, I misspelled emails here, right? So the known email thing is assumes that we know who a person is for some set of a previously seen set of email addresses. So that was like too long. What I was trying to go with this is we need to understand data quality as we ingest it, not later. You got to have a feel for who's giving you the data and then who's the data about. And in a lot of cases, we need to only quasi-trust that data. It's not clear we'd want to go fill something else. Would it be legally binding or messy for us to make those assumptions in other parts of our system? So I hope that was clearer than the last one. Probably not. I might have to go do this again. Have a great day and leave feedback.